I'd like to welcome Vice President and Chief Information Officer Scott Studham to the stage to start the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you all very much. There's been some great moments at the University of Minnesota as we look back in the history of our great institution. I got to participate in one just last week where we went down to Florida for the bowl game. It was quite an honor to help represent the university there. You see that we started the Duluth campus. I want to recognize Duluth and our other system campuses for their participation in this. Can you imagine they spent 2.5 hours this morning on a bus ride? They had wireless and worked most of the way down, so thank you all for coming down. But really I want to highlight, this is going to be one of those moments for us. The upgrade is going to help define IT for the next decade or so. I want to take a brief second, and this is going to seem a little corny, but there are moments in time that help define generations, right? My favorite one there is the Apple commercial, right? For those of you who are old enough can remember that, that was a big moment. This is going to be one of those moments in our IT community. So thank you all for participating in this. Patton has been one of our great leaders. Sometimes I'll refer to him as General Patton Fast. But you've all done great work on this. Many of you are sitting here going, okay, I've been involved in ESUP, and I kind of get it. This is our time to come together as a community. Some of you are sitting here going, I've been hearing other people are involved in ESUP, but I haven't had to do it on a day-to-day basis. So this is your first moment to really start to participate in it. And so thank you for coming in and learning about it. Some of you are going, no matter what, I'm still not really going to be involved in ESUP. So I'm not really sure what my angle is for the day. And those are the people I want to talk to right now. Actually, I'm going to talk about the risks we're going into first. Anytime you do open heart surgery on an enterprise like what we're doing with ESUP, there's some big risks. If you read the screen, you'll see the $100 million risks for organizations our size, right? I don't want anybody to think this is going to be easy, right? This is the big risk. We will get through this together. I have a lot of confidence in the program. They're currently looking at the right thing to do. We're going to have discussions about go-live dates. They've been doing scenario planning for alternative go-live dates. The best thing we can do is make sure we do this at the right time when it is fully baked. We're going to go through, once we go live, we're going to go through a period of discontent, right? How many people were here during EFS? Leave your hands up if you got to experience the period of discontent, right? There's a period anytime you see something this big go into an organization where right after its implementation, you moved my button, right? It used to be blue and now it's pink, or I like to get to reports this way and reports don't work the way that they used to. Or in some cases, we actually did something bad and they just aren't there, right? Over time, things work again. Over time, people forget about it, and over time, we do another thing. But there's going to be a period after the go live where we're going to call it hypercare, right? We're going to spend a lot of time dealing with the social change, right? People are going to grieve because things changed. I need your help on that. So for those of you who are in here going, I'm not really sure what my angle is on this. Why am I here? I'm going to look to Homer Simpson for some guidance. You're going to be at a point in time where you're just sitting there hearing somebody lament about they're in that trough. They're in that sorrow of it's gone live and I don't get it and I don't like it. And I need you to have experienced today so you can go, when you hear somebody say, you know, I hear people can't register their students, or I hear people can't submit their payroll information, or time and labor is not working. I need you to be able to go, no, I remember that day on January 7th where I sat through and watched how it works. So I know personally it works, right? So that when you hear them saying it doesn't work, you can go, I may not know how to explain it to you that it will work, but I can at least assure you it does work, and I'm going to help you get help, right? If we can get all 1,300 IT professionals to be able to do that, it's going to be incredibly powerful to help our organization through this change. So for those of you who aren't involved in ESUP on a day-to-day basis, I'm hoping you can spend some time overhearing a friend at a bar saying, you know, this doesn't work, and you can give them an assurance and say, you know, on January 7th, I saw it, it does work. I may not be able to show you it working, but I can at least help get you the help that you need to get it to work. So what's my ask of you today? My ask of you today is to really learn about the environment so you can prepare to have that bar conversation with somebody and ultimately feel really positive about this. We can either be a little timid and afraid of it, or we can go into this going, we got this, right? And if you go into this going, we got this, we're going to come out the other side a little smoother. There's going to be bumps along the way, but I have a lot of confidence in this whole room. You guys can shoulder this and do this. So thank you very much. General Fast.
Right. Wow. Come on in and have a seat, Mike, Sue, Kelly. Link, are you coming up here? No? All right. Wow. This is a crew. I can understand this now. Welcome and thank you. My responsibility is to very simply frame up and introduce the esteemed guests that we have on the stage so that they can present to you all what it is that they are working on and what we can all come to expect. So this has become an image for ESUP that has been well received in terms of that the upgrade is almost here. We're leaving one bowl and jumping into the larger bowl. And we'll be doing that in the next couple of months. We've made it this far due to hard work by a lot of people. Many of you are in this room, and some that aren't, even a vast majority of others that aren't in this room. And we can't do this without all of us working together. But let me frame up so that those of you that may not have been participating actively with this understand where it is and why we're doing what we're doing before I hand it off. So why is it time for this upgrade? And what's involved? The main reason for this is that our systems are out of date. We're out of compliance and we need to get to where we are in a maintainable, supportable, and in compliant state. So we're upgrading the 3 PeopleSoft systems. We're upgrading Campus Solutions, which is our student system, the Enterprise Financial System, and the Human Resource Management System. Plus, as part of all of this, we're reducing the heavy customization that we used to have, or currently have in our 8.9 system, to adopt more vanilla, more PeopleSoft deployed functionality. I'm just trying to make sure I get this all right. So benefits of what we're also doing here is that we're including a centralized MyU portal, or a personalized MyU portal, consolidated reporting, efficient systems and improved process, ongoing support, maintainability, and so on. But all of these automated changes, they also bring noticeable improvements like employee time management, expense management and purchasing, so we can concentrate more of our resources on mission, not on administrative items and tasks. So this gets back to our goal of the university for operational excellence and being more mission supported. Some of these processes, while we're going after efficiency, some processes may take a little longer on the front end, partially because we have to get used to them. Once it gets part of our DNA, we get to the efficiencies and realize those efficiencies that we want to experience. So much like Scott had mentioned earlier, if something feels wrong or a button moved, help walk through that to understand that, yep, things are going to be a little wonky to start with, but we move past them, and at some point it becomes part of our DNA, and we press on. In interest of time, I'm going to hand this off to, sorry, I'm trying to juggle too many things. I'm going to hand this off to Sue Van Voris so that she can talk about your student campus solutions and student system.
Thank you, Pat, and I'll take the clicker. All right, great to see all of you here on this wonderful, blustery day. As Pat mentioned, I'm overseeing the campus solutions part of that, or what we know as more the academic or student. So if you hear all three of those phrases, they all mean the same thing. But first I'm going to talk about one of the pieces that we're implementing, which is the portal, which will be our means internally to the university to get our business done at the institution. And so what we are doing is pulling a lot of the pieces together so that faculty, staff, and students can easily navigate to get their business done. Some of you probably know right now that you log in to look at your employee self-service, and if you're a student, you would log in multiple times. Once you're in the portal, you're in there once and you can navigate around the portal. What the portal is not going to be is the U of M homepage or the one-stop website for faculty, staff, and students. The portal is really taking that information that you need to use to navigate the institution. So this is a view of what the portal will look like when we go live, and depending on what roles you have at the institution, you will have the various left navigation bars. We will also be able to target information to you as well, and at the top you'll see that there are going to be key links that will help you also get to information such as Moodle. And then the other piece is favorites. What I want to touch on favorites right now is the favorites from the current MyU will not roll forward in the MyU portal going forward. So just keep that in mind because we've been sharing that information, but I want to get that out to as many people as possible. So what we have here with the portal is an announcements page. So we've been working with university relations and other content owners across the institution to make sure that we can provide you with pertinent information pertaining to you as either an employee, staff, or faculty member at the institution. But what I also want to point out on the bottom of this screen is something called notifications. And this is where we can actually target an action item that you need to take at this institution. So for example, this one, if you can read the small print, talks about in November when you have to fill out the open enrollment information. You'll probably still receive an email, but also through the portal, we can send you a notification and you need to take a particular action item with that. Going from the current lowercase m to the new uppercase m, u, just so you know how that's going to work, is that the current MyU will be available throughout the cutover period. Once we go live with the upgraded system, we will be on the new MyU. Reason for that is we definitely want to make sure that faculty can get into the Moodle system throughout that transition period. So just be aware of that. That's when that transition will occur. Now I'm going to just kind of give you high level some of the changes that are going to take place, and then this afternoon they'll actually go into more detail in the various sessions. For example here, we have the student tabs. So students now will be able to see their academic information and financial information and navigate. If they're also an employee at the university, they'll have additional tabs. The reason I want to point out student to you is students are going to go through a significant change. We are moving to PeopleSoft self-service, where when we implemented PeopleSoft in 1999, we actually had to write all the self-service applications. Now that PeopleSoft delivers those, we want to use what PeopleSoft actually provides because it's actually much more fluent. Not that our systems weren't good, they're beautiful maroon and gold systems, but we need to really be cognizant and provide the operational excellence and efficiencies in using what is provided. And so what we will be doing then is moving towards the PeopleSoft service on the student side. On the faculty side also, when you see the word faculty in PeopleSoft, they kind of use that term loosely. So to PeopleSoft, faculty means instructor, if you're a proxy as a staff person, or if you're truly a, quote, faculty member. In PeopleSoft, that all means the same thing. So these are the tabs that a faculty member would potentially have. And I'm just going to dive into a couple of those. So we have the teaching tab. So this is still in the portal. We still have the maroon theme. And this will help a faculty member show all their courses that they are teaching for a particular term. You can look at past terms as well. And then what you can also do is you see the little circle box. If a faculty member is teaching online, they can go into what we call the Faculty Center. But you may not even need to go in there because we also have the class list information, the grade roster information, and Moodle right here in the portal for the faculty member. However, if they want to go into the Faculty Center, then you actually have entered into PeopleSoft. And the way you know you are in PeopleSoft is we have that beautiful blue hue, which is supposed to be calming, is what they tell us. So once you see a blue screen, you are in the PeopleSoft self-service. So this is the Faculty Center. And you can see there you have an advising center. The search tab is really the class schedule information and searching for class information. So a lot of this information is also in the portal, but there we have that also available to faculty, the Faculty Center, where they can still print their grade roster information. And one thing great about this system is you would go here, faculty go here to enter the grades. Right now we have 3 separate systems, and going forward we will have one little tab they have to push to enter the grade information. Plus we'll have a Moodle port as well, so that's fantastic. One thing I want to point out on this particular screen is you'll see on the right-hand side where it says URL, the course guide in its current state is going away. That's an application we wrote, and it's not very widely used. So what we are doing with the class search is that is now connected to the course catalog. But what an instructor can do down to the section level of a course is put in a URL either to their college site that lists courses, departments have various sites that list courses, or to their syllabus. And that will then roll forward from term to term, down at the section level. We don't have that capability now, so people are really excited about that, but you also need to decide in your colleges or areas how you're going to handle that. So that's the Faculty Center. We also have then My Advisees for those that advise. Now, one thing, if you've heard A+, that is not going away. That's an advising system the University of Minnesota wrote, and PeopleSoft does not have that detailed information yet. The graduation planner that we wrote is not going away. PeopleSoft doesn't provide that capability yet. Also, our degree audit, the APAS system, that will still be connected to the PeopleSoft system. But what we are introducing at the graduate and professional level is something called academic advisement. And that is a degree audit for graduate and professional schools so that we can finally get better reporting on where our graduate students are at this institution. So we're piloting the College of Education right now when we go live. And so people are very excited about that at that particular level. So with the My Advisee site, you can dive down and see the academic information on the advisees. Once again, then, you can drill down into the PeopleSoft lovely blue hue screens and get additional information there. And one piece I want to point out here is, it's hard to read, but you'll see something that is called Student Center. That means finally our advisors will be able to see what a student sees when they are in their student center. Right now, that's always a little difficult in answering questions because you can't see what a student's looking at. So that's a huge plus as we move in that direction. The other couple of pieces that we think are very great with the portal coming live is we have a research tab that we've encompassed several items that are more administrative. The research tab is not directed to a faculty member's research, but what it's done is pulled a lot of those administrative tasks together that need to be performed. Plus, we actually can drill down if you're a co-I or PI or faculty member directly into sponsored or non-sponsored reporting through reports. So that is great. In usability, this is tested very well. Or another option is you can still go through the reporting center if you want. So we've pulled all those pieces together. And then finally, the last piece I'm going to try and show you is the faculty career tab. And this is for faculty that are either tenured or working on their tenure. All the pieces that have to be done in order to get your tenure are pulled into one particular spot. And so that has been really well received when we've presented to the faculty. So that's just real high level of what the portal does, and then through the student work stream. And just to summarize a little bit, a couple of changes that you might want to be aware of. All grading now is done through what I showed you, the faculty center. They aren't going to have to log into all three of those systems. However, Moodle will port into that. The other piece is the course guide is being retired, and so you might need to talk about that in some of your department meetings. And the class schedule, when that goes live, will no longer have the word preliminary on it. You can still make changes to the class schedule, but when you actually see class schedule for fall, spring, and summer, they're actually what we call live, not preliminary. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the HR pieces.
Thank you, Sue. Good morning, everyone. Before I hit my slides, I just want to set this up a little bit. Number one, we liked everything in the HRMS so much we decided to change absolutely nothing. So there'll be no changes at all. Actually, it's quite the opposite. When we implemented HR, the software was so inadequate for higher ed employment that we have customized it to death. So this is a fantastic opportunity for us to undo all of that, I'll call it baggage from over the years. So we're looking very much forward to it. So there will be a lot of changes. Just with a quick show of hands, how many of you enjoy your paychecks? Like I said, there'll be a lot of changes. So this is not about end user presentation, this is about facing the university. So a lot of it's on portal, just as Sue discussed. There's a section for employees and managers. There's a key point here that if you're a manager, the portal will know that, and it will give you the manager info tab. And if you're not, you won't see that tab. It's very dynamic that way. I wanted to point that out because on the next slide, it disappears. So this is an employee-facing part of the portal. You can see we have got my time, my pay, my benefits, and my info. I'll defer my time until a later slide. My pay is designed to give high-level information only. If you want more detailed information, you can drill into it through self-service. My benefits tells you about your enrollments and what you've waived. And my info is like your personal information. Notice that we have notifications below that will help serve the business processes. Here's an example of my time. You can see that you can submit a timesheet or request time off. If you are salaried today, you will not submit a timesheet, so don't worry about that. You can see your balances for all of your leave. And then you have access to other links below that help navigate information around these processes. We got to go back a slide or so. Here we go. So this is a really big revolution for us to get away from paper timesheets And I think it's going to be one of the great benefits that we have in the upgrade. So one of the big challenges that we faced is around the data quality, and it's really caused problems for our data conversion. And we've been fighting it and fighting it. So what we need from you is to help be our ambassadors to keep the data clean after we go live, because without it, other processes will break. If we don't have good position data, we won't have good reports to data, and we'll have the wrong people signing timesheets. And we don't want that. So we need the help and support of everyone. And with that, I can pass to Mike Volna.
Good morning, everybody. So I just have had this flashback, okay, that I'm going to tell you about. About a month ago, I was overseas in a country that is a part of the United Kingdom, and the people that I was with decided we were going to take a bus tour of the island we were on, kind of see what the locals are like and what's going on. So about halfway through the trip, we're sitting in the middle of the bus, and bus stops at this stop, and this little old lady gets on. And she's about this tall, she's got gray hair. She climbs up the steps, she looks down the bus, and she goes, "Good morning, everyone." And the whole bus erupts. "Good morning, ma'am." So all I'm sitting here listening to these folks saying good morning and thinking you all saying, "Good morning, ma'am." Person I was with looked at each other and went, "What are we missing here?" So it doesn't happen in Minneapolis even, and we're friendly. So I'm Mike Volna. I'm the controller at the university. I'm the finance guy for this project. Delighted to be here. And I want to just start out by saying I really appreciate all of the support and all of the participation and help we're getting from you in the IT community. It is really going to be important that you be partners as we go through all of those ups and downs, the roller coasters that Scott talked about earlier. So with that, what I will say is that finance is probably the least amount of change that you'll see coming from the upgrade. We did PeopleSoft only 7 years ago. And I'm reminded of it every day. But having said that, we probably have the most up-to-date, the least customized system of my colleagues. So a lot of what we're doing is basically more of a traditional technical upgrade, rolling forward what we have into 9.2. Having said that, we went into this project deciding that what we wanted to do was make sure that if there were any pain points that were still lingering 7 years later, that we addressed them. And so we will be just addressing a few things that I'll talk about in a minute. Start with the finance tabs on the MyU portal. And I will say that this MyU portal is going to be really, really cool. I just did an update for my whole staff, about 120 people. And as part of it, I actually brought up, somebody had sent me a link to the MyU portal to my portal. So in front of the group, I brought it up, and there it was. Hello, Mike Volna. Brought up my benefit package, brought up everything about me, my student ID number from when I went here, everything. It was really, really cool. So I think that the portal is going to really be a big win in terms of how to deliver information and how people can really sort of customize and get the information they want. So if you're a finance person, you will see on the tabs that down towards the bottom, there's a couple tabs that will really matter to you. One says purchasing, one says you finance. And that's how you'll get to some of the finance information if you're a finance person. The things that were really changing in finance that sort of ended up being the pain points were P-card. Everybody knows what a P-card is. Probably a lot of your departments have them. The front end is easy, the back end is not. So we are making changes to how the process works so that the back end is easier. We're spending less time on the reconciliation and all of the accounting aspects of it. We're streamlining the approval workflow processes. When we went live with PeopleSoft back in 2008, the approvals replaced a system we'd built here called Forms Nirvana. And people loved Forms Nirvana, but we knew we couldn't replicate it in what was delivered at the time. So we did the best we could, and we now, in 9.2, have explored and figured out that we can configure the system to create pools of approvers similar to what we had in Forms Nirvana, and the user community is really excited about that. And then finally, the one thing we kept hearing over and over and continued to hear over and over was that because of the way we set up the chart of accounts in the general ledger system, we provided a lot more flexibility in the accounting structures that people could set up, but that flexibility created a lot of challenges because incorrect or erroneous chart strings could be created almost at will. And so people were spending a lot of time cleaning up and correcting erroneous chart strings. So we're putting in much better budget checking that comes down right to the detailed chart string level, and hopefully that will eliminate a lot of that. That will actually go into place with the budget setup process that will begin for the FY16 year, so that'll really start about July of 2015. The other thing that I'm going to talk just briefly about is reporting. One of the things that we have learned over and over, whether it be HR, finance, student, whatever, is that in system changes like that, people are reassured if they can get a report, and if the report tells them what they expect to see. So we are making some changes to how we deliver reports. It's through the Reporting Work Center. One of the things that PeopleSoft delivers in all of our versions of the system is these centers. They're called centers. So we will have a reporting center. You'll be able to get to it from the drop-down key links, but it will be a place where all reports that you can possibly think of will be there. Student reports, faculty reports, research reports, finance reports, what have you. We've looked at it, we've done a little bit of playing around with it. We think it's going to be a pretty nice thing. The one thing about it is because we are essentially replacing the tools, or we are migrating to new tools, a lot of the bookmarks that people have, the favorites that they've saved, will need to be migrated into this. So if people come to you in your units and say, my reports are gone, and you find out that they're trying to get to them through the Reports dropdown, you may have to say, did you go back and recreate your bookmarks or create your favorites? Because that's really where they ultimately will have to do that and get to them. The data warehouse, there is going to be information about the table changes that we're doing in the data warehouse. As it says here, you can really get to that information on the idea page. We're not making a lot of changes to report substance, but because of the database split between HR and student and so on and so forth, all those things you guys know a lot more about than I do. There are some things that users need to be aware of, so we're going to be putting all that information up on the idea page.
It is a great honor to introduce President Kaler to the team. He has a few brief remarks. So, Dr. Kaler.
Thank you, Scott, and good morning, everybody. It's a nice, crisp Minnesota day. Those of you who didn't grow up here may wonder why people live here in the wintertime, but it is certainly a vigorous walk across campus. Speaking of vigorous, you may not know this, but Scott is actually training for an Ironman race later this year. 2-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and a 26-mile running marathon, all in one day. So if you thought ESOP was hard, train for an Ironman. It's really quite something. But seriously, ESOP is hard. You guys are working just tremendously well to move us towards this very important goal, and I'm grateful. And I'm really here today to just say thank you for what you're doing for the University of Minnesota. This upgrade is a big, very visible, very important effort. It's the largest IT upgrade of this decade, maybe the largest IT upgrade of this century, and it's critical that we get it done and we get it done correctly. It's a highly visible element of our commitment to improving operational excellence across the campus, to simplify business streams, to be able to deliver products to our students, our faculty, and our staff in the highest and most efficient way possible. It's incredibly important that we do this and get it done. When I spoke last month to the Board of Regents about this, I told them that I, as president, understood clearly and appreciate that the change of this magnitude can be difficult. It will pose a variety of challenges. It is posing challenges as we move forward towards go live. And after go live, it will pose some interesting challenges too. Dennis likes to point out to me that we may have 70,000 hours of testing on a particular piece of software, but in the first hour of implementation, we will have another 70,000 hours of work as staff dive into this. And so this will be an important process. It will be a challenging one, but it's one that I'm sure that you will do well. And I'm so grateful for your commitment. Many of you are working long hours, even around the clock, to get the last bit of bug squashed and enable delivery of this important project, and I'm grateful. So, as I said in the beginning, I'm here to say thank you. And so on behalf of the entire university community, thank you for what you do for our wonderful university. Scott.
On behalf, we want to actually thank you. So on behalf of the IT community, we wanted to make sure you were getting upgrade ready.
I am totally upgrade ready. Thank you.
Thank you. It's also my pleasure to get to introduce Dennis Wenzel. Many of you know Dennis is the ESUP program director. He's a great project manager. He's one of those people who can keep his hands on the throttle and push, but he also has a great heart and understands when to pull back and take a deep breath and look at things. And so he's going to walk us through this current program status kind of at a high level. And following that, we're going to do the questions you handed in, and then we're also going to do some live Q&A. So, Dennis?
They taught me how to turn it on, and I had to remember how to do that. Thank you, everyone. The other day I was talking to Scott a little bit, and we were talking about being a program director of this size. It's kind of like you have to be a Jedi master on certain things, and I kind of thought about it as that there are certain days I feel more like R2-D2 than I do a Jedi master, but that's okay. So thanks, everyone. This is a really great event to get the IT community involved. This is a really large program. One of the largest in the Twin Cities right now, one of the largest in higher education right now. And I think when I looked at Scott's slides talking about the moon landing and other things, and I kind of chuckled at first, and then I thought about it and said, I think the people over at maybe the University Hospital, Lamplas Hospital, would have maybe an easier time or have a little less stress with doing a heart-lung transplant this week than we would in putting PeopleSoft 9.0, 9.2 on a new Exalogic, Exadata stack, all in a big bang one day. A lot of technology folks would say you're all crazy, and we are, but I think we're doing great work, and the program is going well. That's not to say that we don't have our challenges, but I think this is a really good program. Little history of where we're at. What I'm going to talk about today is really the three phases of getting live. How are we going to get live? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the 2 to 3 weeks, or actually the time between now and go live or cutover. I'm going to talk about the week to 2 week cutover period, and then I'm going to talk about our enhanced support period that takes place the 2 to 12 weeks post go live. So a little bit of history. We've been, we did all the design development over the last 2 years. The development is done. We've been in active testing. We did all the functional testing, the system testing, end-to-end testing. We've done some end-to-end testing, but our end-to-end testing has started in earnest this week. So that will be taking place where we're just going to be following pieces of data through the campus solutions, the human resources management systems, finance systems, reporting, all managed through the portal. So we're really excited about moving into that phase, but it's also a nerve-wracking phase of the project in terms of the testing that needs to be done. President Kaler did talk about, and I often use this number, is that we had scheduled or planned over 70,000 hours of testing on this application. And like he said, on the first day of go live, our 70,000 users will test the system pretty hard. So we know that there's going to be, we're confident that we're going to have done a good job on our testing, but we also know that there's going to be nuances and things that people are going to find, and you as technology folks understand that. So we've been, our training has been developed, and a lot of the training has started and has been released. I really recommend that you take a look at our upgrade.umn.edu website. Register for the newsletter. Newsletter comes out regularly and gives very quick updates to important things taking place. Very quick read, good update. But you can also check out there, all the training is out there, and it's broken up by user groups, and you can take courses, take a look at them. Some of them are very short, some of them are longer, but very good professionally done training. Communications, I'll talk a little bit about that. We've got a big communications effort going on. This is a part of that communications effort. One of the things that the teams learned from FNS is that we really need to engage the communities and participate in a communications effort to make people ready for this heavy lift. We are in our preparations for cutover right now, and we will be doing cutover. I'll talk a little bit more about cutover and enhanced support as we go forward. So the program has gone through, we set up a fairly strong or fairly large project management office, have a large management structure of project directors, both university and contractors that are managing the program. And then we have a very active executive oversight committee that meets weekly. And I think that's a big testament to the commitment of the university of having the senior leadership of the university meet for an hour and a half every week. Actually, I've never seen a program have that level of executive support and involvement. So I think that's a really great thing. As we have gone through this, is our program directors, project directors, have regularly met with us and provided updates, status reporting, metrics reporting. We really applied a lot of metrics, so we managed script execution, script performance, and really code quality throughout and efficiency of finishing the code, the build, the defects, all of those things. So we've had multiple go, no-go decisions where we dashboarded across the people, process, and technology of the university, or of ESIP program, to determine our readiness for go live. Now there are certain areas, I think, in the communication area, that area is always going to remain yellow. No matter how good of a job we do with 70,000 users, there's going to be at least one person that on go live, they're going to log in and say, what happened? And I think there might be two of those people out there with all the communication that we're doing, but there's going to be one or two that don't know what we're doing. So through those processes, we had a go, no, go discussion with the Executive Oversight Committee and their business process owners in mid-November. At that point, we determined that February go live was a go with conditions. We had some things that we needed to look at, and we reassessed with a month later, so middle of December, we had another go, no go. And our process was pretty methodical in terms of where we found issues, risks, and areas where we wanted to work on. And we met in December. There was a lot of green across the dashboard. There was some yellow, but we'd identified some red as well. Some areas that were, in terms of, if you look at it technically, as a technical group, they're small fixes. As a business process and a risk mitigation or risk area, we wanted to do some things to manage that risk. So President Kaler participated in that go, no-go decision. At that point, we did decide that we were not going to go live in February, primarily because there was two real issues that came out, business issues that came out. One is Oracle was releasing their 2015 tax updates, and they scheduled them to come out immediately after our freeze period. We had planned to have code freeze. So there was an issue with how are we going to incorporate the new 2015 tax updates and regression test that throughout a now fully integrated environment. So that was one issue. The other issue is there was identification within the HRMS work stream on how to manage contract pay. And the manner in which we had built it and had determined, and we were working with Oracle to build that and deploy that, was not going to work for the University of Minnesota. So we identified a fix, we identified a process to manage that. However, although the technical fix really just took 2 days. The developer got on it, fixed it, deployed it, we're ready to go. But it was core. It was core to HR. It was core to how we pay anybody who's P&A here, any professor. It was core to how we pay those folks. And so we need to make sure we can't put any risk out there on pay at all. So we need to go through a full regression cycle. Those regression cycles don't just take place in a day. They're about a 3-week process. We have to run a parallel payroll. We have to run it through the general ledger. And so because of that, we determined that a short delay was going to be needed. So I sent out a letter to my teams yesterday talking about this. And with that, we are going to take the next 2 to 3 weeks to determine an exact go-live date. And some may say, well, why can't you just set a date if you know what the defect was? Is we only want to set a date once. We want to, if we're going to move the date at all, we only want to do it once. I don't want to set it and then say, oh, we need an additional 2 weeks to get something else done. It's just, we can't do that even in this room. If you look at all the people that are impacted by ESEP, that would be too many people to impact. So we are going to take a look in the next 3 weeks, review the results of our end-to-end testing and our regression testing. I'm very confident in the teams that we're going to be able to move through that. I'm very confident. We've gone through thousands and thousands of test scripts. The test teams, all the business process owners are committed to pushing people to get that done. Once that is done, once we're confident that we were able to push that through and regression test that, we are going to set a date. Our assumption is that it is going to be sometime between mid-March and mid-April. Now, things can change. We all know that system-wide. If we find something that's larger, we have to make a different decision. Business cycle time, business process time, between mid-March and mid-April is going to be the time. So a brief delay. We've managed our budget conservatively, so we're not going to blow the president's budget too much to go beyond that. So we've managed the budget very conservatively so that we had some contingency in case something happened. But I wanted to let the IT community know so that if people say, well, oh, look, they just had this big blow up. No, we're just being prudent. This is a really large system. And we could, like I said, the fix is in. We could run it through and say, I think we got it. But I don't want to do that. I don't think anyone here would want us to do that. So I think we're being prudent. A brief delay is going to take place. So we can answer questions about that later, but you're probably some of the first to really hear it, other than the folks from my team who got the emails yesterday. I'm going to go on now and talk about broadly what we're going to be doing to get us live. So we're still in deployment mode in terms of final deployment planning mode. We have a very focused communication campaign. I've got a very good communication team, both within ESEP and then also within each of the work streams. We have experienced communicators and change management folks within each work stream that are working to help communicate what is changing. I think, like I said, based on what happened with EFS, we are really focusing on helping people know how their life is going to change. We're trying to let them know who's going to move their cheese and when. So you're going to start seeing a lot more things about ESEP. I'm going to ask all of you to make sure that you're sharing this information with your colleagues. You're sharing our web link to say, hey, you might want to take a look at this. Go to the What's Changing page. Take a look at what's changing in your area. The more word of mouth, the more sharing we can do, the better. But we will be having a pretty concerted campaign. We're working with University Relations as well. You'll start seeing some posters on campus, so we'll be moving with that soon. Part of that communication piece and then eventually our enhanced support piece is our advanced teams. So there are groups of individuals, and there are several hundred individuals that are represented here. Some of you are part of the IT FCOP, community of practice, that is getting some added information about ESUP in terms of how to help with the upgrade. We have the finance RRC managers that they're getting some added information. HR stars, they're a group of folks focused on human resources. And then faculty go-tos. One of the things we realize is that faculty are doing other things, and they're not necessarily paying attention to the fact that their systems are going to be upgraded. So we tried to identify individuals within the units, maybe they're admins, maybe they're support folks, that are going to pay attention, so that when that faculty member logs in on the first day of Go Live and they say, what happened to my grading system? Where did it go? That somebody down the hall can say, I can help you. I can help you. So we've got several hundred people listed for that, and that we're working with them. We will be posting their names and their emails, their phone numbers, so that people within the units will be able to have access to them. Basically, they're going to be some super users that are going to be the voice of the ground. They're going to report back to us to say, hey, this is what we're seeing. These are problems. We're seeing some questions, whether training, technical, or otherwise. And we really think this is one way to seed the community. You can all be honorary members of this group, so hopefully you can all help us as we do this heavy lift. So prior to the cutover, really the final 2 weeks prior to cutover, you're going to see a lot more communication coming out about how to log in, where to log in, what you're going to see. I've already seen, we've got a little one-pager on just how to log in and what that new screen is going to look like, and where you can how you can go through the portal to access your PeopleSoft applications and your reports. We know that we're going to be printing a lot of those and providing those around the community so that people can at least get in. We've found through our user testing that once people got into the application and got to their PeopleSoft, even though things changed, they were able to generally do their work pretty well. So we're trying to do some things to break through with that. I'm going to talk a little bit about just before Go Live, the cutover period, and how that's going to be managed technically. And then also the defined period after Go Live, which is the enhanced support period, helping people navigate any issues. So really the 2 weeks before cutover, we could consider this even the last 6 to 8 weeks before cutover, but really a lot of communications coming out. Final cutover preparations, so we are going to have to shut down, well, quasi-shut down, go to view-only mode for 8.9. There's going to be a few elements of the application that will still be up, very select components of the application. So when we do the cutover to bring 8.9 to view-only, the business areas have to plan how are they going to manage their work during that period. So really probably the 2 weeks before we do the cutover, business units are going to be looking at, do we save some paper off? Do we load things up early? Do we pay vendors early? Do we pay vendors late? How do we do these types of things? So we're documenting all those now, but that's when those pieces are going to be initiated. And then we'll be actually planning the cutover so that people will know that they're only going to be able to do view only in 8.9. So then the cutover takes place. And the cutover, many people will ask, they say, why does it take 1 to 2 weeks to cut over? Well, the University of Minnesota, with our PeopleSoft application here, we have to do a double hop, so to speak. We have to do 2 upgrades to get to 9.0 and 9.2. So we have to convert that basically convert the entire application twice. And in the most simple form, that's what we have to do to get up and ready so that we are on one consistent piece of PeopleSoft 9 and 9.2. So during that time, we will start by bringing down 8.9, bringing it back up into view only, and then for most processes, that's going to take about a day to do. And then we will initiate the upgrade activities, which based on our plan is going to take about 8 days. We've put a couple of days on the end of that as a buffer, assuming that things happen, making sure that we have enough time to go up when we're going to tell the university that we're going to go up. And during that time, we're going to be converting from 8.9 to 9.092. We're going to be updating the data warehouse, and then bringing up the systems back for validation. So we've got a group of end users that'll be validating the data and validating the application to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to. And then we'll be doing a go decision to say, yes, we can turn it on for Monday morning. So I'm not going to read off of that slide for everybody. But basically, our plan would be is that we'll start on the Wednesday before go live. Or the Wednesday before our overall cutover, where we will run the final HR batches, we'll run the payroll, and we will start running the final batches that run downstream over the next 3 days. About 3 in the morning on that Friday, we will start the conversion to 9092. And so the conversion processes will kick off then, and they'll be going 24/7. And just as an aside to let you know, we have done this process 5 times already. So we've done 4 non-24/7 practices. We did 1 24/7 practice, which was a really good learning exercise. It helped us understand who could sleep at 2 in the morning in their chair and who couldn't. But Tim's smiling at me over here. I think he's one of those that could sleep standing up. Had to. But we worked the 24/7 process. We have 1 more scheduled. We'll do that approximately 4 weeks before the selected go live. And it gives us an opportunity to flush out any problems that we're going to have in terms of going live, so that we can be confident if we tell the university community we're coming up on Monday X date, that we'll be up on Monday. Because the worst thing would be is if we told everybody we were supposed to be up on Monday and they showed up on Monday and said, oh, we meant Wednesday. I don't want that to happen. Nobody here wants that to happen. So we'll start the shutdown activities on Wednesday, cutover period, and I'm sure you'll be able to have access to this PowerPoint slide. It'll show how we're going to be doing the parallel process of the conversion. One of the longer processes is just doing the HR data conversion. It's a long process. It takes a long time to move a few million records. So we put in enough buffers so that we will hopefully, if everything works as quickly as possible, that we would be able to bring some users in, some of those advanced teams in, potentially the Saturday after the cutover had started, up on 9.0 or 9.2, so that they can validate their access provisioning, their access, validate the data again, maybe identify any issues that we might encounter, and then Monday morning everybody comes back to campus and they log in and all the fun starts. So when we go live, when we are up and ready, we have a team that is focused on our enhanced support, or our hypercare support. It is a concerted effort to help manage issues. Now, one of the things that we've done is we have engaged the current structure of managing issues and ticketing of defects or issues that come up through the community, so that we can funnel through. We're not changing that for the whole community, so if a finance user has an issue, they can go through their finance chain to log an issue, log a defect through ServiceNow, and get that managed through that service desk. And we've got that. We're leveraging that current process. Many of you are probably going to be trained or be involved in that process for helping manage those tickets. With that, though, we will have a team that's going to be working on in a command center, so to speak. We're going to be in the basement of W. Bob and working together to highlight trends, highlight big issues. We're going to find some issues that are data related. We'll be able to send that team to go and figure out how we're going to either fix that data or manage that data. We are going to find issues that are defects, that are code application problems. So we'll be able to send another team to say, let's go work on how we can fix this and determine a good time to deploy this. And then there are other issues that come from behind the keyboard. And with those, we are going to be working on training and helping people understand if we see trends. Let's say we saw a trend within HR of people saying, I don't understand how to enter my time, and they're all asking the same question. The defects are coming. So we've got our training team ready to deploy quick training of whether maybe it be a quick video or a quick user guide, or set up a session around campus to say, bring all your HR people together and we're going to do a quick training with one of our BAs to say this is how it works, and really explain it again. So we're trying to manage people, process, technology across the streams. Our command center is probably going to be really up and running for the first couple of weeks, and then dependent on how processes go, and also there's going to be business cycles that are going to go up and down where we'll re-engage this, this command center for managing trends and defects. So I think it's a good way for us to, I've done this a lot in the past where it just, you really identify trends and issues and try and push those through as best possible. Many of you ask, well, how are we going to hand over a program that has over 300 staff that are directly involved, approximately a third to a half of them are contractors, and hand it back to the operational staff? Some of that has started already, as you can see by this. It's kind of a rough trend line on how we're managing it, but we've started introducing the service directors, specifically the OIT service directors on the technology side, and then on the business side, all the business process owners have their team leads, the people who are going to own that business process, either fully engaged in ESUP or partially engaged in ESUP and ready to take over as we go forward. As we're now moving into deployment mode, those individuals from within the departments, those University of Minnesota employees that are going to own this going forward, are working side by side with everyone, and we're getting a lot of work out of everybody. So they're working hard with us now with the goal that sometime after enhanced support, that transition will start weaning off the program more and more, and the goal would be that by summer of 2015, we'd be in full operations mode, and those of you who do operations are just going to do your job, and you'll be managing the new 9.2 environment and the issues and processes that come out of that. A couple things we need your support for. We've said it before, Vice President Studham talked about it, is this is one cutover period for all systems. This is a big lift. I don't think they call it a big bang for anything. So people, any communication you can do when you're helping talk to people about this, letting them know that this is a big deal, letting them know that there are going to be changes and that we have a method and means to help them move through it. There will be post-go-live defects. It's impossible not to have defects. We could test for the next 3 years and deploy it, and the first month we would still find things. So we just need your help and support in helping people understand that we will be managing those as quickly as possible. And those of you who manage issues in the old system, I'm guessing you're still finding a thing or two periodically on something that's been mature for as long as 7 years. There's a lot of culture change that's going to take place. One thing I've often said is that our design teams could have designed a great process. The developers could have built it perfectly. Our testers could have tested it through 100%, and there is no defect in that process. And we will deploy it, and everyone will hate it. And with that, we know that we have to just deal with that and try and work with the people behind the keyboard and try and help them understand that this is, listen to them to see if there are things that we do need to change, but try and help them manage their business process as we go forward. So again, stay connected. I really recommend you take a look at the Upgrade website. There is a lot of information, just tons of information about what's going on in the program. The What's Changing page is really important because you can work with your units and find out exactly in excruciating detail how a process has changed and what it's going to impact that user. The training page also has all the training, so you can I'm thinking about Portal right now. There's some great pages on demos on how to use the portal and what that's going to look like and things like that. All through all the other business units as well. There's great training if you want to take that and get a little bit of a flavor of the actual business process. I'm really proud of that team. They did a really great job. Sign up for the newsletter. It's a quick read email that you'll get. Take a look at it, sign up. We really want to use that as a communications vehicle. And if you have any questions, send it to the ESUP website. Also feel free. I'm more than willing to take emails from you and answer your questions. Anytime I can do that, I'd love to help. So with that, I think we're going to questions.
Was that you? R2D2 or C3PO or who are you
C3PO,
today?
I think. You can stay up here, man.
So we have about an hour before lunch is served. So what we've got is the questions are going to be broken up into kind of 3 parts. So the first part is the formal community of practice around ESUP has given us the 10 questions or so that were kind of their front of mind questions. Second part, we're going to ask the business unit owners to come back up on stage and answer the questions you guys asked at the tables. And then the last part is if there are still remaining questions, we'll do a live Q&A and a discussion. So let's get into them. All right, which browsers can I use? So most browsers are supported by Oracle nowadays, right? So I'm sure that somebody in our computer science department can create some web browser that won't work with an Oracle product. But we've kind of gotten past that point in the technology curve of browsers not supporting things. You got anything to add there?
No.
All right.
We've been doing testing across multiple browsers, so.
Good. How will I print from the new system? There is going to be a change in printing. You can still print the old way, and that's the process along the bottom, which if you've never actually used PeopleSoft to print, which I haven't, I actually had to learn this, you can run a print job that creates a report, and then it sends it to a printer for you, right? So this is like for those of you who remember the mainframe days, we'd get the line printers, the line prints, and you'd come in the morning and read them, the batch prints. We have people who still like it that way, right? There's also the top way, which is kind of a more normal way of printing nowadays. You can run a job in PeopleSoft that creates a report, and then you have to go to the report manager, and then you can actually save it to your desktop or actually send it to the printer. Okay? Anything on that one?
Oh.
Cool. You want to take this one, or you want to?
What type of training will I need, and where do I find it? Go to the Upgrade website, look for the training page, and it is broken up into user groups, user communities, and you should be able to identify the types of trainings there. All of them are titled with a brief description of what that training is. I get this question a lot, and the interesting thing is people are like, well, is there a core curriculum for me as an XYZ person in this unit? And we haven't done that, partly because this is a highly matrixed organization, and people wear multiple hats, and it is hard for us to just determine that to do your job, you only need these 3 courses. You might only need 2 of them, or you might need 5 that come from a different group. So we're working with supervisors and unit managers to have them work through that and identify what their people need to be trained in. And so, but I think the brief descriptions online are really good. They should help you identify, oh, I do that. I should probably take this 30-minute vignette and walk through it.
And everybody here is going to participate in the breakout sessions this afternoon. So you'll all leave here with that general understanding of student HR and finance. So when your constituents in your units come to you and ask you a question about something, you don't necessarily need to know the detailed answer, but you'll at least know that this is roughly how it's answered, and let me help point you towards the training. We're also trying to give different groups receive training different ways, right? So IT professionals, you're getting the training early on, right? Our student group is at the opposite end, right? Students, if you tell them about a change in the registration process 2 months beforehand, they won't remember, right? You have to tell them 2 days beforehand, and 3 days beforehand, and the day of, and the day after, and they may actually read one of those emails. But each group gets it slightly differently.
Our university registrar is shaking her head.
It's just like they won't read any of the emails. When will the university need to do this type of upgrade again? So this is a great question. This is, sometimes you call it a decadal upgrade, right? So once a decade you do something like this. I've shared with some of you, so I've been here 3 years now, and during the interview process, somebody said, I asked, what are the large things we have to do as an IT community? And somebody said, well, there's an ERP upgrade. And you do ERP upgrades every 6 months. Every 6 to 12 months, you tend to just do the little minor upgrades. This type of upgrade is more of a, we don't say re-implementation. There would be political ramifications to call this a re-implementation, even though that may be a more accurate definition of what we're doing, at least in the HR space. Finance, it's definitely just kind of it's a major but minor upgrade. When will we need to do it again? Probably in the next 10 years. When we do it again, it'll probably look very differently, right? So the idea of moving to, I don't know, if we're moving from 8.9 to 9, right? The idea of moving to Oracle 10 probably isn't what we would be talking about. We're probably looking at more cloud-based services, those sorts of things. And in each one of our business units, you can imagine the HR space and cloud services, Workday, those kind of things is more mature. Student services and cloud-based services, that's a very emerging market. That's not a very mature market. But that's a long time from now. That's 10, 15 years from now. So who knows what technology will look like by then. How will this impact me? Two major ways. The first one is the new MyU portal. If you've ever been in an environment where there is a portal, right, it gives a very different feel for the computing infrastructure. So as an employee, we all go to the HR employee self-service, right? But it doesn't know who I am. I log into it and it shows me my information, but it's very, I log in, tell it who I am, and then it tells me what I push on, right? In a portal environment, I log in and it starts pushing me information that I need to know to do my job, right? We're going to introduce this to the university slowly, right? So MyU will have certain capabilities at launch, and over time, it's an infrastructure that we can grow if the university chooses to grow it, right? But on day one, there's going to be some really cool things in there in terms of I can go in as a supervisor now and look at employee compensation. Right now, I don't know how to do that. I actually have to call my finance officer and ask her to tell me what employee compensation is for people in my business unit. So those sorts of things will be very empowering for folks. The next one, the electronic time and absence reporting. This is going to be something we'll talk about again in the HR breakout this afternoon. Kelly hinted about it this morning. It's one of the larger changes. It means no more paper timesheets, right? So we all, when we want to take vacation, there's a process where we all, even in OIT, where we fill out the electronic version, it still results in somebody having to make a paper version of it, then to go send it over to somebody else to put it into an electronic version in a different system. It's a mess, right? It will be automated. That's the good news. The bad news is we know how the current process works, and there's a new process, and there's that change, right? So people are going to have to fill it out. People are going to have to sign it. That's going to cause people some stress, right?
Do we have a recycling program for all the carbon paper that's going to go away?
Right. You want to share your story of, I'll share his story. Dennis was given a brief on this in terms of, well, imagine a scenario where an hourly employee has to fill this out and a faculty member has to sign their time card. And
Yeah, I was meeting with President Kaler, and we were discussing change, and we explained this change with filling out a time card. And President Kaler turned to Scott and said, Dennis just used the word faculty and timesheet in the same sentence. This should be good.
yeah.
And so he understands how difficult this is going to be. I think we all do.
So there's going to be some bumps along the way, and HR is putting processes in place to make sure everybody still gets paid, even if their timesheet didn't get signed the first week. But over time, we're going to actually have to enforce the electronic process. There's going to be a lot of other changes. How does the new system meet the U's accessibility requirements? First, users who need accessibility, there's a piece of software we put in place to allow screen readers to access the environment. So if you're a user who needs an example of a screen reader or a different accessibility tool, you can call OneHelp, and OneHelp will go through the process of turning it on for your account so you can then have a screen reader connected to it. For people that we know about, we will already pre-populate that for everybody. So anybody who currently is registered with Disability Services is needing that sort of accommodation. We will go ahead and pre-populate that before go live, but this is something I need your help communicating, okay? If somebody's out there who maybe Disability Service didn't know about, you've hired a new employee, something like that, and you know they're going to need an accommodation, make sure that we call into OneHelp and have their account turned on so that they can actually connect a screen reader to it. So the question is going to be, well, why don't you just turn it on for everybody? Okay? If we turn it on for everybody, it creates a whole bunch, by turning it on, it creates different interfaces into the environment that we would like to keep people from exploring until we've had the opportunity to test them, okay? So the plan is, so like mobile interfaces for students and those sorts of things. The plan is to do that over the next year or so, but for right now, we need to turn it on user by user. It's the safe and prudent way to do this. There we go. So how can we help with security issues? So one of the big changes, I don't like the term security here because security to me is like hacking. This is like security is in like access provisioning and accounts and roles and those sorts of things, right? So how do I get access to it? Big change. So big change between the way we do things now and how we're going to do things in the future. So in 8.9, in our current environment, let's say Dennis shows up at the university and he says, you know what, I need access to the environment. The way we do it is he says, well, I need access like Scott has access. We clone a person and say, that's how he has access. And then he'll go in and say, well, I also need access to this table in the data warehouse, and so he'll get something added onto his access. Then somebody else joins and they say, I want the access like he has, right? And it's very individual. Each person has their own access, okay? In the environment we're moving to, it's role-based access. Okay, so I have a role here. I'm a supervisor. I'm an employee. I've been an instructor. I'm a vice president. I'm a department head. I'm an RRC manager. Those are all roles, right? So each one of those roles will have different levels of access, right? So when Dennis shows up, he wouldn't have all those levels of access, all those roles. So you can see how it's very different. So this is a big change, and we're going to stub our toe, right? This is something that we're going to have issues with during the go-live time. So we need your help. Anytime somebody says, you know what, I can't get to the report. See, reporting doesn't work. Reporting may not work, but what's more likely is probably they weren't given access to that report based on the roles they had, and somehow the conversion didn't work right for that end user. So the right thing to do is to call OneHelp and have them make sure that they've got the right access there.
And one thing, too, to remember is that although we could quickly have OneHelp just say, oh, you say that you need access to this report, here we go, we'll add the role and away you go. That's probably not the most prudent way to manage 70,000 users and having people just calling and saying, I need access to something. So there's going to be some level of delay when someone calls and says, I don't have access to a certain screen or a certain element to do my job, just for the simple fact that we're going to have to do some validation that their supervisor or their unit says, yes, Mary needs access to that. And so we're working it out right now to try and make that as expedited as possible, but it's just good for people to know that we're not going to be able to just quickly give people access right on the first day. We have a process that we're going to have to go through to make sure their supervisor can say, yes, Mary needs access to that report. That's a security issue.
That's good, yes.
Right, that's where security and access provisioning cross.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand it to Patton, who's going to answer the questions you asked on the note cards related to technology. He's going to then hand it off to Sue, Kelly, Mike, and Lori. Sue, Kelly, Mike, and Kelly. Sorry.
I find this actually entertaining because I have 4 questions, and Everybody else has a pile of them. So from the technology perspective, yeah. Oh, Mike's really good at putting things into one very succinct statement, like, we have 50 reports today, we'll have 50 reports tomorrow. I like that. All right, so let me quickly go through these. Will we still need to use Duo to access reports, purchasing, et cetera, et cetera? Duo is what we use, yeah, I like this. What we use Duo for today, we will use Duo for tomorrow. Will the VSL system used by OIT to manage vacation requests be going away? Yes, it will go away. It's being replaced by the new PeopleSoft vacation time management, so on, component. When saying this is done to be compliant, what are we trying to be compliant with? The system needs to be compliant with all the various federal regulations and all the things that we have to be updated to, taxes, the student financial aid systems and things of that nature. I mean, there's a plethora of things that we have to have our systems compliant with. So what are we trying to be compliant with? Kind of pretty much everything. And I have one other question that actually got very technical, basically asking about, is there an API for the portal that we can use? No. How's that for an answer? All right, I'm going to Sue. Do you want to just take the one set, or do you want to do them all at once?
I'll just do a couple sets to give everyone else a chance, otherwise I'm going to be here the rest of the day. All right, so some student questions that we've received, and if I don't, or if I misinterpret your question, please feel free to follow up with an email with me. First one, how will students be communicated with, or how will they learn about these changes? We have a whole communications plan around the whole student piece that involves the advisors and the college students services staff and anyone else that cares to participate. So we've been doing preview sessions around the campus, and we'll continue to do those, and then we're also creating user guides as well. When we surveyed students, they said, well, you can send me an email, but I'm not going to read it. Or you can create a video, but I'm not going to look at it. What they said is they really learn from either their advisor or from friends. And so we want to make sure we have key people trained, so we're working with student government groups in order to do that. So with the communication strategy, we will still send emails, we will still create videos, but we have a lot of other means in order to communicate with the students. But it is also very user-friendly. When this went through usability, it scored very, very high. So the students will probably be showing us how to use this. Next question, how do we as IT help inform student-facing areas how best practice in using the blue screens, those lovely calming blue screens? Once again, we have purchased a tool called a User Productivity Kit, or UPK, and so those will actually have tutorials that are provided that you will be able to access to actually take you through those blue screens piece by piece. And so that's how you'll be able to see and navigate those screens, or see how a student can navigate those screens. Why won't we go live? Oh, will we go live in the middle of a registration period? So Dennis talked about that we are going to have to adjust the date when we go live. Now keep in mind we have 5 campuses that start at different times and end at different times. So next week we will be pulling everyone together and start taking a look at all of the pieces that potentially could shift or move, and then we'll make a recommendation. So I'm pulling all campuses together. I'm not going to make any promises, but we're going to start taking a look at those pieces. What should we tell our colleges about bookmarking their favorite reports and how to do it? What I would do is start recommending now they either take that screenshot of their bookmarks, or let them know, or put a note on their desk. But Dennis also talked about we have the faculty go-tos. And those folks also know that they have to help us in gathering some of that information as well. And that information is out, actually, who your faculty go-tos are out on the upgrade.umn.edu website, and you can actually go in by college or department and take a look at who the faculty go-tos are, and maybe you two should talk together to make sure that you can gather that information. reports. Will our current access rights be transferred? Yes, they will. How to request access reports we don't have access to now in the new MyU portal. As Dennis talked about, there'll be a process in order to request that, very similar to what we have now with that ARF process to get you access to your reports. I will turn it over to Kelly to answer some of his questions now, and then you can come back to me. How's that sound?
The first question I have is the HR self-service being replaced? And the answer is it's really being moved. A lot of what we showed you before on the slides around portal lead you into self-service, and there will be a key link in the portal that will be called Employee Center, where the traditional links will be for self-service. The big difference, which I think is an improvement, is that they've been themed. They're not just in alpha order anymore. They actually are bound together in the subject area. So. Do P&A employees report sick absences in the new system? Is this required or is it optional? And if yes, what happens with that data? The simple answer is no. There is no policy to have P&A report sick, so you will not report it. There will be no data. We have enough data. As someone, a student that has multiple jobs, will I enter time for both jobs in the same place? And the answer is yes. You'll be able to pick which job it is. We are collapsing many multiple jobs in our conversion. That may or may not be true for this particular individual. So if you have more than one job today, you may not have more than one tomorrow based on the rules. So I have to just kind of have that caveat. Will there be a calendar view in the new vacation and sick leave system? And will we be able to see if our team members will be out? There is a calendar view that employees can see, and the manager, our supervisor of the employee, can see that, not team members. Clarify what it means that info must be accurate. What exactly needs to be cleaned up? Well, we've been cleaning up stuff for over a year. The most impactful data is around position data and who reports to whom. Because if that's wrong, the wrong person's going to see timesheets and absence request. So it's really the main problem we've been facing all along is making sure we have our organizational structure reflected in our data. Of course, we would like the compensation information to be accurate as well. For faculty who might be asked to approve HR-related activities for the first time, like time cards, vacation, et cetera, what are we doing to prepare them, and can they delegate this process? This is a fabulous question, and I want to thank the individual that asked it because this is where I got hung up on my slide. This is our biggest fear, is around these approvals. Now, the upgrade does not keep me up at night, but if I wake up at night, I'm stuck. So I woke up at 3 in the morning, and I thought to myself, gee, what's the worst case scenario? How many people do we have in our data that report to one person? So we ran the data. And on one of our system campuses, we had 900 people reporting to one person. So I'm envisioning the deadline coming for payroll and a person in the system. I've got 900 approvals to deal with. I thought, that might not work out so well. Then we looked a little deeper. Even today, we have several faculty that have more than 150 people that report to them. Same kind of reaction. That's going to be a problem. So here's what we've done. We've pulled that data apart by college or administrative unit. We provided it to the HR leads, which are basically the HR directors, and the RRC contacts, which are the finance directors. We did this in a meeting, and we charged them to have a plan. They're supposed to create a plan for how they're going to have approvals, which includes delegations, because that is one of the features that we have. And they're supposed to report the plan back to myself and Heather Kidd by tomorrow. We have a lot back. We have a few that are going to probably straggle in. The important thing is they think about it. Use the roles that we have for time administration in the system. Get familiar with them. Decide if your data is the way you need it and want it. Do you really want 160 people reporting to one person? Does it make any sense? Is it manageable in that regard? be thoughtful and mindful about it, because when the switch comes on, it's on. And it's too late at that point to think, yeah, that faculty member is probably never going to log in, right? So we've got a very aggressive communication campaign around this to get this in order. This is our highest risk area for sure. And that's all I have. Back to Mr. Volna.
Okay. This question says, detailed financial data, July 2015. Will this alleviate the need the institution has for shadow systems? I've been dealing with this for 23 years, right? I'm going to put it back in this pocket, and I'll bring it out in 7 more years. You know, there are practical business reasons, there are technical reasons, there are behavioral reasons, and there are emotional reasons why people create shadow systems, you know? It's like me just finding out I have to upgrade Netscape now. I'm really annoyed. Thank you. To the extent that the budget checking that this refers to has caused people to create spreadsheets, shadow systems, whatever, to track their data, I would hope that putting this in will alleviate that need. But as I said, there are emotional and other reasons, you know. So there are finance people. Let's talk about finance. I know there are probably shadow systems in your worlds as well, but finance people tend to be black and white. So when Scott said it's that the upgrade of finance is sort of a big little thing, I got very uncomfortable. Okay? If he'd have said there's a new bucket, it's called medium, I would have felt much better. Okay? And finance people tend to be detailed. So if they think the data is gone or missing, or they can't check it, or they can't validate it, they create a shadow system. They create a spreadsheet. They create a list. They create something. Okay? So this won't eliminate all shadow systems. I'm realistic enough to know that there will always be shadow systems, and there will always be what I call subsidiary systems, valid, bona fide systems for which you would never expect your institutional systems to track data. The best example for me is some of the patient billing systems that the Academic Health Center has. I don't want to put patient data and patient billing receivable information in our institutional systems. So we'll create a shadow system. It's called an AHC billing system. The student tuition system is a subsidiary system. We don't want to track tuition by student in the main enterprise financial system. We put it in a shadow system. It's called student system. So there are valid reasons, but there will always be shadow systems. Anybody want to take another one? You've got more? Or do we want to take questions from the crowd? You got a lot more?
I'll finish up and then we'll open it up for questions. All right, so moving on to the portal and / One Stop. What will One Stop become? And I'm assuming you're referring to the One Stop website. And currently we have it broken down into faculty, staff, and students. We are actually porting that all those web pages over to Drupal, so it's not going away. But on those padlocks where you log in to a certain area, that will redirect you to the portal. And over time, as more and more people use the portal, those padlock sections will actually then be incorporated into the portal and have that information there. So we still have to always have an external facing website for the university community and beyond the university community. So the One Stop website is not going away. We would like to continue to enhance it, and we'll do that, but like I said, it's not going away. What will remain? Oh, that was actually the same question. What did they mean by MyU is not a location for new software development? The portal actually that we are implementing is a presentation layer over PeopleSoft and other systems where we can pull in URLs. It is not a software development package at all. So that's what we mean by the portal is not a tool in which development occurs. It's a presentation layer. So we just pull in URLs that help people navigate the institution. So the systems behind that, for example, PeopleSoft, are where the development occurs. When will the portal notifications be able to target smaller groups other than faculty, staff, and students? For example, HIPAA. I'm actually the temporary portal owner, and that's going to be moved to Lincoln Callison afterwards, so I could put Link on the spot and say, oh, we'll do that tomorrow once you go live. And he's shaking his head already saying no. So what we really wanted to do with the portal is build a strong foundation which to build upon. And notifications actually can be pretty specific according to somebody's role. But as far as then pulling in other systems, such as the HIPAA pieces or all these shadow systems that we mentioned, that will have to be looked at from a governance standpoint. Otherwise, someone could have 50 notifications if we aren't careful. So we want to have a really good strategy as we open that up and take a look at it. So we want to make sure that the portal still has a strong foundation, go live day one, and then we'll take a look at how we really want to build upon that through a governance structure, which Lincoln will be taking over. So navigating the MyU portal, is there a navigation resource for those who don't have access to some of the areas but need to assist? As Dennis talked about on the current upgrade.umn.edu, there are a lot of navigation tools for the portal, and we don't intend on letting those disappear after we go live. Those will be placed somewhere where people can continually go in, and new staff or students or faculty that come along could also take a look at that information. So we are creating those tutorials, and we do not plan on then cutting that off. On the faculty page, this is my last question. On the faculty center page, is the URL that I talked about archived, or is it changing? We have accreditation concerns. Now, first of all, the official pieces for accreditation are PCAS, ECAS, the university catalog, and the class schedule PDF. The URL, which is really in a way like the course guide, has never been an official document for accreditation purposes. So if you feel you need that, like I said, it's only a URL linking to something out in a college per se, then I would continue to make sure that you maintain that if you have a specific accreditation requirements. To answer the specific question is it changing? Yes. So an instructor can continue to update that URL, or the next term, if they change how they're teaching their course section, they can update that URL, and it is not archived. So I hope that answers that question. And with that, I've answered all of our questions, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A.
Brittany, do you want to?
So thank you, Barbara, for kicking us off. We have some mic runners, so as we finish an answer, if you have a question, put your hand up, and one of the mic runners will come to you. So we'll start with Richard.
And I'll pass this over to the person who can really say the question a lot better than I can. Currently, my team can emulate a user for a specific part of the current portal. We can go and see their course listing and any Moodle links to do troubleshooting. Will we still be able to do that in the new version?
So as part of the program, that's called sign in as, right? The concept that we have going forward is that sign in as functionality will still exist, but today as part of the program, jumping into the weeds for a few people, we've got that'll go against a different stack, which will ultimately be a stack of information that is repopulated on a nightly basis. Does that answer your question? So you'll be able to do that. You will be able to. That functionality will remain for the ability to do troubleshooting.
All right, I saw a hand up over here.
My question is similar. I'm a parent of a student here, and I'm also a staff member. So I'd like to find out how can I sign in or emulate my child so that I can tell my child when she's sweating the first day of classes where she's supposed to be?
Well, if you have about an hour, I could talk about FERPA and how you are not to log in as your student and tell them where they're supposed to be unless they grant you access in order to do that. So if they've granted you access through parent guest access, you will still have that capability going forward. And it'll actually be in a kind of a parent portal in order to go ahead and get that. Now, the thing I want to let you folks know is the whole parent guest access, we will be using what PeopleSoft has delivered and not what we have built. And so there will be some changes with that. And so that will still be available so that you can tell your student that they need to go to class and wake them up in the morning.
Thank you. Okay, we got one in the back.
I'm wondering, Mike, Kelly, and Sue, if you could predict where the biggest challenges for the end user is going to be as a result of the ESUP change. With all the technologists in the room, what can they anticipate the biggest challenges or the biggest issues they're going to hear from end users in each one of your areas?
Well, I would say for faculty is going to be access, because we had to build basically the access from the ground up because that has changed significantly. And so we are actually trying to get as many people logged into the system before we go live to make sure that all their access is accurate. So that's my biggest concern for the faculty and staff side. On the student side, I would say just from usability, our registration system right now, you register class by class by class. In the new system, or in the PeopleSoft self-service, it's actually pretty slick. It's like a shopping cart, and so they will register for all their courses at the same time, but they need to make sure they, in a way, check out and hit that submit button. So I think that would be my biggest concern with the students, because in usability, that button is not as big as the Amazon button, and so that's, I think, maybe my concern with that piece. Now, keep in mind, when we went to semesters back in 1999, I had faculty that didn't realize we went to semesters, and so I kind of expect we'll have some of those types of issues as well.
As I mentioned before, I think our biggest challenge is around the time and absence reporting. The nice thing, at least in my mind, around this is it's pretty self-correcting. If you fail to submit a timesheet electronically and you fail to get paid, I think that'll get resolved within the next pay cycle. It just is. I think for the end user, not the general employee, but for somebody that is in the system like today, my concern is probably around the deprecation of the pay entry, because right now we have a page that we built that allows hours override, rate override, lump sum payments, and accounting overrides, and that page is going away. So the accounting has been built fairly robustly, but is not tied as tightly to the actual pay that can change from pay period to pay period. And the lump sums are going to move away from what was probably an easier interface into what we call additional pay. And that is not as friendly. And so I think lump sum payments for employees will be a little bit trickier than we have in the past. And we'll just have to see how rocky that road is before we have to change it.
So Bernie, I'm going to sort of twist my answer a little bit. The changes that finance are introducing aren't that big. So, you know, people will recognize that some of the things I talked about have changed. The information that will help them get through it will be pretty straightforward. I think what I worry about, the end user experiencing, is that we missed an integration, or that there's an integration aspect that has changed or has not been well thought out. Because finance people, the financial systems end up being the endpoint repository for any financial information that emanates somewhere else. And so, you know, you got to set somebody up as a new employee, you got to set them up at the right pay rate and with the right classification, and then 3 or 4 weeks later, you start to see the financial information actually hitting the general ledger. And if all of that is not tested, integrated, and well thought out, there will be impacts that will be seen there. So that's really, I think, what I am more concerned about is just sort of the integration of it all than anything that is specific to finance.
All right. We've got an online question.
So this question is around enhanced support. Can we have this sort of active monitoring, rapid response, and focus on communication of trending problems continue after we go live, because this is a useful service in general?
Useful, yes. Expensive, yes. So would we love to have that? There's a lot of things that we would love to have. But we will do our best. We will continue to do our best to support our community, our university, our various administrative business functions and units, and collegiate, non-collegiate alike. So, but to do it after, to the degree that we will be doing it, it's just cost ineffective. So that would not be operationally excellent.
Question here, and then I'll do there.
What kind of error reporting can we expect either from the end user or even from, you know, like coming from tertiary systems? Any of the reports if the page is missing or if it's an error of access, is it a general error, or what kind of things can we expect from that side?
I don't have a great answer for you, but there's a variety of different errors that get thrown for different problems that we wind up with. We're seeing many of these in the various nature of the defects that our testing community is finding. So to state that here's the way that the error handling is done, it's situational. It's scenario dependent. We're finding that in the testing space, where issues, the same symptom has a similar outcome, but it has a very different root cause. So it's really situational. So I don't have a very specific answer for you on that.
Question in the middle.
So one of my questions is, we have a lot of teaching specialists who come, and sometimes they have to have access to the class before the students come, and then they leave for a few months and then they come back. How is their access going to be impacted? It's a problem now, but they call One Help and they give them access immediately, and now I'm hearing they might not get it immediately. So how's that going to be impacted for those rotating teaching specialists?
So right now, we put them in as without salary appointments, and we have the call go to the area you just described. It's the same process going forward for now. We can look to improve that process when the noise settles down after a while, after 2 or 3 or 5 years. So it's the same process essentially, but the without salary process is changing dramatically.
Okay, going once. Oh, I see. Okay.
Speaking of that changing, I was curious, the idea of multiple appointments is changing to a primary and sometimes a secondary appointment. And same thing, employees, people that were considered employees are now sometimes considered affiliates or person of interest. Are all the processes to convert that data, is all that work done, or is it in progress?
Dennis? It's been in process for 2 years. We are currently validating what we hope are the last changes to the defects in the conversion process. That validation will be followed up by a parallel payroll test. The beautiful thing about a parallel payroll test is there's nothing hidden. If something is wrong in conversion that affects benefits and pay, it has to affect the results in the payroll parallel, so we will not be we will have no hidden surprises, though we may have some issues yet to resolve in the last few weeks that we have here. We're hoping they're very minimal.
My question's about the changing go-live date, so maybe Dennis is going to be best equipped to answer this one, but it's, from the sounds of things, we kind of expect to know maybe by the end of the month. So could you maybe shed some more light on that, just in terms of timeline and maybe determining factors around that?
Sure. The reason we're not simply saying, here's the date, it's March 27th or whatever, is primarily we really want to see the results of this end-to-end payroll test coming out of HR and the conversion, because that contract pay issue really impacted everything. We just want to make sure that that's solid. That's all scheduled to take place over the next 2 weeks. And so we'll probably have a really solid idea in the next 2 weeks. We're hedging a little bit to say that we'll announce a better date in about 3 weeks, partly because we just have one time to give that date. The other thing is, which is unique in upgrades with this upgrade, is because, as we've said, it's a big bang. So all 3 major systems have to go live at the same time. We can't separate them out and carve them out architecturally, upgrade-wise. We can't do that. Those are decisions made long ago in terms of how we were going to go forward with this go live. But business cycle-wise, Campus Solutions Group, they have registration, financial aid, they have different things that happen that it would not work well to be down for 8 days during that period of time. And you move down the calendar, and financial services, you look at and say, well, they're doing the budgeting process during this window. And then HR has another window of time. So we really have few windows where we can get all 3 up at the same time so that they can all be in view-only mode at the same time. So we're trying to assess all that. And unfortunately for our student friends, they're going to suffer the most just because they have so many important things happening in the spring, and then also early fall and during the summer and in the winter. So they're going to have the biggest impact on when they have to move the dates. But that's where we're looking. We just want to be really prudent about it. My spouse was asking me when we were going to move the date as well, so I really kind of like to know myself. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and Richard got his hand up first. He's mic'd someone. I will say, though, we will, if we didn't answer your question, go back to those note cards, and we'll collect them, and we will have a feedback mechanism to get them answered.
So you mentioned that we'll use Duo, or we use Duo today. Could you just clarify what the authentication process is to get into the portal to do all the self-service things?
Did you just say don't say yes or no? How about both? The general user population of the institution doesn't use Duo today they don't need a second factor to do things. What I believe Mark is wanting me to kind of get to inform people about is through the portal, most of the portal activity that you do, you won't need a second factor to ultimately do. The other piece, though, that is a little different than the way things work today is when you start out in our environment today, if you need a second factor, you're getting challenged right away for it, and then you're good to go for the most part. The way things work in the new portal is slightly different in that you are not challenged for a second factor until you hit a page that requires the second factor. So it'll feel different from that standpoint in that you're not getting challenged up front to basically have your second factor all the way through. We've experienced that as through the testing community that's been working with the new system a lot. It's different, and so there's a lot of things that brings up, whether it be from the user behavior because I'm expecting something different, or it's because it feels a little random or haphazard. But there's a list of pages that require two-factor, or require Duo. When you access or when you click the link to access one of those pages, that's when you'll be challenged for that second factor, not before or so on. To finish that up, once you've then entered that second factor or you've provided that two-factor credential, you are now, you have access to everything. Now it'll act more like what people are used to. Does that answer the question? All right.
Thank you. Thank you to our awesome panel, well-informed people.